Hello, my name is Vanessa Karam. I am excited to welcome you to University of the West and hope to meet you soon in person. I was born in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Germany, where I also graduated from university. I've worked at US for over 20 years, so the university is my second home. I am responsible for student services and work with a great team of staff members who provide student activities, academic support, on-campus housing, international student services, and many other services outside the classroom. In this presentation, I am speaking to you in my role as Title IX Coordinator. More about that in a little while. This presentation briefly introduces you to UWest's mission, values, and culture, and then focuses on issues related to Title IX, specifically sexual misconduct. Although the topic of sexual misconduct is not presented in graphic detail, some viewers might find the discussion of issues such as rape, sexual harassment, and other types of violence upsetting. If you are worried that this presentation may cause you emotional distress, or if you become distressed while watching it, please stop viewing it and email me so that I can make alternative arrangements for you. Welcome to the U.S. family of students, faculty, staff, and alumni. UWest is open to people from all backgrounds. The university was founded by Venerable Master Xingyun of the Foguanshan Buddhist order. Master Xingyun was a leading advocate of humanistic Buddhism. Humanistic Buddhism seeks to apply Buddhism to the world we live in. Foguanshan established 5 universities and many other schools and charitable organizations. This slide gives an overview of the Foguanshan Consortium, which is made up of 5 universities and institutes of higher learning founded and supported by Foguanshan. From the top, University of the West, your new school, although one of the smallest, is actually the oldest, founded in 1991. The others, which we call our sister schools, are Foguang University and Nanhua University in Taiwan, the Nantian Institute in Australia, and Guangming College in the Philippines. UWest's mission as a university is, of course, focused on education and driven by the inclusive values of our founding organization. Our mission statement is to provide a whole-person education in a context informed by Buddhist wisdom and values, and to facilitate cultural understanding and appreciation between East and West. The values we seek to model and instill in our community are the 3 C's: character, compassion, and community. The university community promotes openness, inclusivity, and diversity. As our non-discrimination clause states, UWest does not discriminate on the basis of race, ethnicity, sex, national origin, religion, age, gender identity, gender expression, disability, sexual orientation, or any other classification protected by law from discrimination. We respect the rights of each person as a valued individual and strive to engage in responsible and ethical conduct. Respect does not mean that everyone must agree all the time. UWest is a university and values open intellectual inquiry and the free exchange of ideas. Like all members of the community, students have rights as well as responsibilities. Your rights include the right to freely express yourselves both in and out of the classroom, participate in any association that does not engage in illegal behavior or activities, and experience a fundamentally fair process in any action taken by UWest. Unfortunately, sometimes misunderstandings, disagreements, conflicts, and misconduct happen. For such cases, to protect everyone in the community and to provide fairness, transparency, and consistency, UWest has a set of conduct standards and processes, which you can find in the Student Conduct Code posted on our website. Title IX is an education law first passed in 1972 that includes issues of sexual misconduct in schools and universities, specifically sex discrimination, sexual misconduct, sexual harassment in person and online, sexual violence, stalking, including cyberstalking, dating violence, and domestic abuse. And the law also provides protection from retaliation for those who report sexual misconduct or provide witness statements about it. At universities, these kinds of issues are generally called Title IX issues. The statistics shown here are meant to give you an idea of why the U.S. government has included issues of sexual misconduct under Title IX law. What these numbers mean is that across the United States, when surveyed, 20% of women and about 6% of men report that they have experienced some form of sexual assault while in college. For transgender college students, the rate is even higher, about 21%. And individuals with disabilities have even higher rates. Please note that these are not the rates at U.S., of course, but rather average rates that reflect some of the challenges of large university campuses, especially where there is party culture involving alcohol, where there are thousands of students living in residence, and so on. At U.S., we have had just a few cases involving sexual misconduct, and they were mostly related to abuse within relationships or misunderstandings around consent. Nevertheless, the university takes any such case very seriously and seeks to protect our students and community from misconduct of this kind. Did you know that only about 5% of victims of sexual assault report what has happened to them? What do you think might be the reasons for such dramatic underreporting? The graph on the right shows some of the main reasons why female students aged 18 to 24 and females in general of the same age choose not to report sexual assault, including believing it was a personal matter, so just their own problem, fearing retaliation or reprisal, believing it was not that important, not wanting the person who assaulted them to get in trouble. This is often the case when the violence happens within a relationship or from someone the victim knows well, or believing the police would not be willing to help them or could not really do anything. One reason not listed in this statistic, but one that students often think of when we discuss this issue in workshops, is the issue of shame. Often victims are ashamed to come forward or blame themselves for what has happened. So let's keep in mind that the victim of sexual violence is never to blame. The responsibility lies with the person who commits the misconduct. Blaming the victim is wrong. At UWest, we encourage and support students to report sexual misconduct in order to keep our students safe and to provide accountability for inappropriate and harmful behavior. As mentioned earlier, University of the West takes the issue of sexual misconduct and sexual violence very seriously. I'd like to explain a little bit how we do that in practice. UWest has a student conduct process and appropriate university sanctions and protections to prevent and address sexual misconduct quickly and effectively. During any Title IX investigation, UWest may implement what are called support measures to maintain a safe and non-discriminatory educational environment. Such measures may include changing housing arrangements, adjusting course schedules, or prohibiting contact between the parties involved in the alleged incident. In all Title IX conduct proceedings, the university is committed to maintaining confidentiality, providing a trauma-informed response and support, and offering a fundamentally fair process for all students involved. As in all conduct proceedings, determinations of responsibility for any alleged act are based on a preponderance of the evidence. We also support students to report sexual violence to law enforcement if they want to. Regardless of whether students choose to do so, the university is required to conduct its own investigation into any report of alleged sexual misconduct. Find the U.S. Title IX policy on our website. What do we mean when we talk about sexual harassment or sexual assault? I need to give you the official federal Title IX definition, which is long, so please bear with me. According to the federal Title IX definition, sexual harassment refers to events or actions, verbal, visual, or physical in nature, that are continued and unwelcome. And unwelcome means that this behavior is neither solicited nor incited. That means the other person has not asked for or invited this behavior. Or said differently, the other person has not given their consent, and it is regarded by the recipient as undesirable or offensive. Remember that we are talking about conduct of a sexual nature, and the federal definition says that this is unwelcome conduct that would be offensive to a reasonable person, which could interfere with an individual's academic pursuits or create or substantially contribute to an intimidating or hostile work, academic, or student living environment. The federal definition goes on. Further, Title IX identifies sexual harassment, including sexual assault, as unlawful sex discrimination and designates any of the following conduct on the basis of sex as constituting sexual harassment. A school employee conditioning an educational benefit or service upon a person's participation in unwelcome sexual conduct, often called quid pro quo harassment. So this would be a case where, for example, a student is told that he can have a job on campus if he engages in some type of sexual activity, including verbal sexual activity, with the person hiring for the job. Or if a professor gives a student a certain grade in exchange for some kind of sexual activity. Because students are always in a dependent relationship on university employees, say for grades, academic credit, jobs, scholarships, some kind of benefit, it is inappropriate for employees of a university to become romantically or sexually involved with students. Other conduct included here is unwelcome conduct determined by a reasonable person to be so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it effectively denies a person equal access to the school's education program or activity. Now, this could be conduct of a sexual nature by an employee or another student towards a student. So remember that this isn't just about doing something of a sexual nature to another person physically, but also could be something like repeatedly saying words of a sexual nature. For example, "You look hot," until the person is so uncomfortable they fear seeing the other person in class, online, at campus events, in the cafeteria, and so on. Because this impacts the other person's ability to access their educational environment, it is prohibited under Title IX. And then the final category of conduct named in the law is sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, or stalking, as defined in the Clary Act and the Violence Against Women Act. These violations are also defined in the Title IX policy posted on the U.S. website. So let's recall that the law talks about unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. In other words, when someone engages in some kind of sexual behavior without the explicit consent of the other person. Let's look at the concept of consent now. All members of our community are expected to respect each other at all times, including within romantic and sexual relationships. Respect means paying attention to verbal and nonverbal cues, desires, boundaries, and behaviors of others. This includes making sure that my partner is agreeing to and wanting to participate in any sexual activity before engaging in that activity. In addition to the federal Title IX law, there is educational law in the state of California that says that consent to sexual activity must be affirmative. What is affirmative consent? It is a voluntary, sober, wanted, informed, mutual, honest, and verbal agreement. It is an active agreement. Consent cannot be coerced or forced. It must be asked for every step of the way. If a partner wants to move to the next level of sexual intimacy, they need to ask and make sure their partner is also willing to do that. Affirmative consent is never implied and cannot be assumed. Just because individuals are in a relationship does not mean one partner has permission to have sex with the other partner. It is not inferred, meaning just because a person did not say no does not mean they are in agreement. Said differently, absence of no does not mean yes. Silence does not equal consent. There are circumstances as well where even when consent is given, it is not valid. Can you think of some situations where that is the case? Let's talk about that in a minute. No means no, but nothing also means no. Silence and passivity do not equal permission. This is very important to remember since people are not always comfortable talking about sex, even in relationships, or they don't want to hurt their partner's feelings. That's why it is important to make sure our partners are really in agreement with what is happening. Saying, "Well, you never said anything," is not an acceptable defense later on. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. That means anyone has the right to say yes and then change their mind. We must respect that at all times. If someone engaging in sexual activity gets a no and keeps right on pressuring and continuing to interact sexually, that person runs the risk that their behaviors are a coercive influence on the other party. They could be held responsible for sexual assault later on. Back to the question at the top of the slide. Consent is not valid even if given when someone is intoxicated by drugs or alcohol, mentally impaired, or a minor, which means they are under the legal age for sexual consent. Even if such persons say yes loudly and clearly, it is wrong and illegal to engage in sexual activity with them in that condition. A few words about online behavior. Even when many of our interactions are online, the issue of sexual misconduct is still real. Therefore, Title IX and sexual misconduct policies also prohibit online sexual harassment. Harassing others can occur over a telephone, in writing, and over internet. Online sexual harassment involves the making of unwanted sexual advances or obscene remarks, gestures, noises, images, or similar verbal and nonverbal communication. It includes materials received by a victim and materials posted about a victim. This includes cyberstalking, catfishing, monitoring location check-ins, virtual visiting via Google Maps Street View, hijacking of webcam, installing stalkerware, tracking a person's location via geotags, and so on. This kind of misconduct can severely interfere with the victim's ability to study and go about their life. U.S. prohibits this harmful behavior and will investigate it and take all necessary steps as required to keep the victim and the community safe. Let's look at a specific situation. So in this situation, imagine that you are excited because you have met some new friends at UDays and in your classes. You exchange phone numbers. Right away, one of your new friends starts sending you texts, very friendly ones, saying, "Hi in the morning," "Hello at lunchtime," "What are you doing now?" "Good night, late at night," and so on. After a few days, this begins to bother you. What can you do? Please take a moment to think about how you would handle this situation. When we have discussed this in workshops, many students have said that they would simply block that person on their phone, and that is certainly a way to stop the unwelcome texts. On the other hand, you may still be seeing this person and interacting with them in your classes, so you might try first just texting back that you would prefer to limit the text to class-related things, only because you are busy or because you don't like to get lots of texts. Whatever the reason you would like to give. After that, if the person still texts you or tries contacting you in another way or exhibits hostile behavior towards you, you should let your professor know or let me know. You have the right to set the boundaries around your private life, and that includes your digital contact with others. While a few texts don't seem like a big deal in the beginning, if it happens continuously, it can affect our ability to concentrate and participate fully in our school and personal activities. So it is best to speak up. Also, even though the texts may annoy you, don't delete them right away. Save screenshots of them. If you thought of other ways to handle this kind of situation or have questions about it, I would love to hear from you. email me, or make an appointment to meet in person. In life and relationships, things are often not as clear as in definitions and policies. That is normal. Often an individual might not be sure if something that they have experienced or something they have witnessed is inappropriate sexual conduct or relationship abuse. They are not sure if they should say something or not because they don't want to get in trouble, get someone else in trouble, or lose friendships. In such cases, it is always possible to just ask questions to get more information. Sometimes these questions will lead to actions by the university, and sometimes they won't. But nothing will happen without a careful investigation, consideration of the victim's wishes, and an objective review of the evidence. In any case, it is better to ask so that individuals and the community can be protected, and so that anyone who is suffering from what has happened can receive professional resources and support to help them. Remember, it is not your responsibility to solve the problem, but it is your responsibility to help us maintain a safe living and learning environment for all at UWest, based on mutual respect and our values of character, compassion, and community. Here's another situation. This one deals with abuse that is also physical. If you find it upsetting to think about it, please skip ahead to the next slide. This is the last example we will use in this presentation, since we don't have the chance to discuss face-to-face. In this situation, David and Luis are both students at UWest. They are friends and roommates. Luis begins to notice that David has a lot of bruises on his arms and some strange injuries. He asks him what happened. First, David says, "Oh, it's nothing. I just fell down in the gym." But Luis tells him that it doesn't look like something that happened in the gym. Finally, David tells Luis that he and his partner have lots of arguments because the partner is very jealous. When David's partner gets upset, they sometimes hit David with their fists or bite him on the arms. What would you do if you were David's roommate? Common answers to this question are that first, the friend or roommate would be concerned for David's immediate safety. They would try to talk to David about how this situation is dangerous and abusive, that it is not his fault, and that he needs to be safe from his partner's violent behavior. They would also encourage him to speak to someone professional who can help him, maybe a therapist or someone else that he trusts. Finally, they would ask him to think about reporting the situation to the Title IX coordinator, because even if David breaks up with his partner, the partner could go on to hurt another person. What if David doesn't want to report it? Would they do it? Students give mixed answers here, but usually agree that if the situation seems dangerous for their friend or others in the community, they would probably say something. This is a difficult situation, but it is the right decision for the well-being of David and the whole community, and even his partner, who needs to be helped as well. Just like the first example, if you thought of other ways to handle this kind of situation or have questions about it, reach out to me to discuss. One last comment here. In this example, I have not specified the gender of David's partner. That was intentional. The point is that people of all genders can become the victim of sexual harassment or sexual assault, and people of all genders can be the perpetrators of such abuse. We have seen that the largest percentages of victims are female, transgender, and people with disabilities. That does not mean that men cannot be victims too, or that women cannot be abusive. All reports of actual or attempted sexual misconduct should be directed to the Title IX coordinator. At US, that is me, Vanessa Karam. You can see my contact information here at the end of the presentation and on the US website. I encourage and welcome you to reach out to me with any questions at any time, even if you are not reporting something. Maybe you are not sure about what to do in a relationship and want to avoid misunderstandings involving consent. I'm here to help, and anything we discuss will be confidential. There are other resources as well. By policy, all responsible employees are required to report Title IX complaints to the Title IX coordinator. Responsible employees, sometimes referred to as mandated reporters, include supervisors and officials with significant responsibility for student and campus activities, including but not limited to academics, student residences, discipline, and campus safety. Before a student discloses an incident of sexual misconduct, university faculty and staff will try to ensure that the student understands the employee's reporting obligations. If the student wishes to maintain confidentiality, they will direct the student to confidential resources. Take, for example, a professor that a student feels very comfortable talking to. Because professors have significant responsibility for student and campus activities, they are responsible employees, meaning that they are required to report suspected incidents of sexual misconduct to the Title IX coordinator. If a professor realizes that a student might be starting to tell them about something like this, they will let the student know that they would like to hear the student's problem and support them, but also that they are required to report what they hear to the Title IX coordinator. As a result, the student might decide they would rather talk to someone who is not required to report, and the professor will refer them to that person instead. This would be the student's decision. A professor or other employee would never refuse to hear a student's concern. Sometimes students just want someone to talk to while they are trying to decide what to do. That is perfectly normal. There are many professional and confidential resources off campus. We provide a list of these on our Title IX resources page on the U.S. website. They include the Rape Treatment Center at Santa Monica UCLA Medical Center, Peace Over Violence in Pasadena, YWCA Wings San Gabriel Valley Domestic Violence Hotline, the National Sexual Assault Hotline, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can also find the link to these resources at the end of this presentation. Today's presentation was pretty long, but it was still just an introduction. When you come to UDays Live at the beginning of your first semester, you will participate in a workshop that covers some of these issues from a practical, culturally relevant perspective. Each semester, Student Life and relevant departments also provide information, programming, and events on topics such as healthy relationship, domestic violence awareness, dating safety, and similar important topics. Your questions, concerns, comments, and participation are welcome. Reach out to me anytime. Let's review. Even this small introduction contained a lot of information. Thank you so much for your attention throughout. Here are the 5 main takeaways I hope you will remember. 1. U.S. universities are required by law to have policies and procedures in place to prevent and address sexual misconduct occurring against their students. 2. Sexual misconduct includes sexual harassment, sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. 3. Understanding consent is one of the most important ways to prevent sexual misconduct. Don't engage in sexual activity without that knowledge. 4. You should report any knowledge or questions about sexual misconduct to the campus Title IX coordinator, Vanessa Karam, me, or a confidential professional resource. And 5. UWest has published policies, procedures, and resources to protect individual students and the campus community and provide support for both the victim and the perpetrator of any alleged sexual misconduct. The U.S. Student Services team and I are here to help you in any way we can. On the left, you can see my contact information and the links to some of the important policies and resources we've discussed. Thank you for your attention and for being part of U.S. Culture of Respect. I wish you a great first semester full of learning and academic success, making new friends, engaging with the campus community, and staying safe and healthy.